At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability, ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Follow the money. That's what I always say. You always follow the money. Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Here we go. Welcome in. It is Follow the Money on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Mitch Moss, Paulie Howard, live with you in downtown Las Vegas from the Circa Resort and Casino. Very busy and action-packed 3-hour program lined up. Bottom of this hour, Fantasy Football Hall of Famer Paul Charchian had a great week last week with player props. He'll tell us who he likes this week in the divisional round. Best bets in soccer with Steve Wiss. Preview of the national title game with Brad Powers and UFC 311 with Lou Finicaro. In a couple of minutes, I'll tell you about something that's only happening for the 5th time as of right now in the last 29 years, this round in the NFL. And the overall landscape, Paulie, of this sport is going to be changing soon. Roger Goodell, we're close to getting, 8 international games played in the regular season next year? And 5 of them, I think, are already scheduled. And back in November, Goodell actually said that he wants to play 16 games internationally, and he wants to expand to 18 regular season games overall within the next 5 years. So as long as, the playoffs don't expand too much more, right, you can't be adding, an 8th, 9th, 10th team like some of these other sports. I would actually argue maybe we have one too many already right now in both conferences. But this is like a trial base we've had for a couple of years. Keep it now, right? In the playoffs?
Yeah. So there's 55 games around the world. They could do up to 8 in 2025. Yesterday they announced the Colts are the home team in Berlin. We're not sending them our best stuff, right? Jets and Browns are the home teams at Tottenham Stadium. Jacksonville, of course, at Wembley. There's going to be a game at Madrid also. So that's 5. Can they get to 8? What's the appropriate number? I like the 6:30 games, but that's also a long day for people with a family, East Coast, West Coast, where you're getting up that early or you're staying up that late if you're getting up on a big deal on the East Coast. But what's the right mix? If he wants to go forget 8, if
there's going to be one per week?
Yeah, think about that. That's football the whole day.
Even at 8, it's one every other week. Yeah. Unless they would do a double header somehow or go 2 games at the same time, which I don't think they would ever get into.
I think 8's a good number.
I think 8 probably seems accurate because then, again, if you go to 16 at some point, okay, first of all, the good news is that's an all-day 14-hour betting fest, which can go really, really well or can go completely sideways. And then you're exactly right. How do you box out, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time until 11:30 p.m.? So essentially 14 straight hours of football? I mean, I love it. I think it's great. But how does that affect a normal person with a wife and a couple of kids? And I got 6 hours maybe to spend all day watching the NFL.
Right. And then if he continues to do this, does he want to put a team over there? That's the other thing.
That would make the most sense, I would think, right?
Yeah, if there's 1 or 2 teams in London, if you want to do it more than 8 times. But I think, back to your earlier question, I think the right number is 18 games, add another bye week, and we stretch this out a couple more weeks too.
Well, if they go to 18,
start it a week earlier.
They absolutely must go to 2 bye weeks per team. Mm-hmm. It's mandatory. If they don't, that'll be a huge whiff, and everybody will probably hate that. But you go to 18, 2 regular season byes, and then you can play the season basically from, the weekend after Labor Day all the way into President's Day in February. And that's the plan.
Yeah. But you also have to be worried about, and they talk out both sides of their mouth, but you got to be worried about player safety too, which they talked about for years, and now they keep adding games. But the other thing game was canceled at Mexico City because of the field, and then there were concerns about the Brazil game too.
All right.
So when you're going over there, you better know what you're getting into. London's no problem, but some of these other games have been canceled or guys slipping and sliding. We've had issues too. So that would come to mind if you're talking about the Madrid game, which we don't know the home team there either. But the other thing is, when you're doing this, at least send them some good options, right?
Once in a while, yeah.
Right? You got Tampa one year to Germany, but Colts, Jets, Browns, Jacksonville are your 4 home teams.
Who's next? Raiders on the list at some point? Just go to the bottom feeders, Tennessee. Want to put them over there?
Yeah, well, that's just arrogance saying no matter who we send over there, it'll get a big reaction or reception and it'll sell out anyways. But at least give them something.
Right.
I mean, what were we stuck here with? Giants, Carolina was one of the games.
That was one of the games. Went to overtime.
Yeah, right.
But
bad teams, though. I mean, give them something.
For the most part.
Yeah.
On to the games this weekend. So this is what I was talking about 2 minutes ago. We've only had 4 road favorites in the last 28 years of the divisional playoffs. I remember this game. San Francisco went to Carolina, beat them up pretty good, 23-10. That's when they went to Seattle to play in the NFC title game, and it came down to that tip pass by Richard Sherman. Then he's calling out Crabtree after the end of the game. Epic finish. The other 3 lost outright and ATS as well. And here at Circa, it's a pick 'em between Baltimore and Buffalo on Sunday night. Every other spot basically has Baltimore favored by 1 or 1.5 on the road, but only 5. This is only the 5th time now in 29 years, which is pretty nuts when you stop and think about it. Although, again, we used to have two teams with a bye, and so I guess it would make a little bit of sense. Anything here? We're looking at Steve Makinen's numbers at vsin.com. It's a lengthy read, great numbers he can pull out. What stands out to you, Paulie, when you look at how this has gone in the divisional round over the years?
There's been a significant performance difference in home-road dichotomy based upon the day of the weekend. On Saturdays, home teams have gone 25-5 straight up, and they're 67% ATS the last 15 seasons. Again, that big advantage. I'm fresh. You're coming in. It's a Saturday, and that sticks out big time.
I think there might be something to that, right?
Especially Washington.
That's the thing.
With what they have to overcome. Sunday road game in Detroit rested Saturday. Yep.
Exactly right.
On Sundays, road teams have performed much better. 18-20 straight up. They are 67% ATS since 2006. Last weekend, Wild Card article had the similar trends, but both of this year's Saturday teams went outright in ATS. So that's the breakdown he has with that. That makes a lot of sense. And then the other one, remember he said the outright winner is 37-12-1 ATS in the last 50 divisional playoff games, tied into what he had last week. Wild Card article, just pick the team that's going to win the game. They cover the spread. 86% ATS running. They went 6-0 ATS last weekend. This also, if you win, you cover 75% the last 50 divisional games. So how many games will the point spread come into play out of these 4? And I don't think maybe it's just going to be all these teams by margin, or we just get shock the world upsets. But that has been strong going back too. That
one's very difficult, though, because then it's a lot easier said than done. Just picking the winner outright. Then you got to nail the teams that win it outright as a dog, and then you got to be comfortable with, these teams that are laying big points and saying no problem, they're going to get there, although that's been a thing in the NFL going back a good, 9-10 weeks now. Double-digit home favorites. We don't have one right now. I don't think Detroit will get back to 10. Could be wrong on that. But if they do, double-digit home favorites in this round are 8-1 straight up and 75% ATS. Tennessee's upset of Baltimore in 2019 is the only outright loss in that group. They had more than 500 yards of offense in that game, but every high-leverage spot went against them, and Tennessee upset them on the road. Road teams in the divisional round, when they're in the plus 3.5 to 9.5 range, are 26-17-1 ATS the last 44 games. That is 60.5%. Straight up 14-30, but Houston plus 8.5 and the Ram plus 6. As he writes, will look to extend the point spread angle in 2025. Houston on the road, Rams on the road. But you don't like the Texans, don't give them much of a chance here.
Right. The one thing I also think will continue is you have to score. So what he wrote about last weekend was on the website. It takes more points to win the divisional playoff round as opposed to the wild card round. Only 5 home teams that topped the 20-point mark lost in the last 23 years of wild card playoff action. 6-0 straight up in ATS last week. The benchmark for this round is 27 points. Home teams that reach that point total, 43-5 straight up, 73% ATS since 2002. Both covers in 2024. Well, here we look what we have, though. I mean, look who's playing. All big-time teams with usually good quarterbacks that figure to be able to score, right? So I would absolutely just think that you're not going to win if you score 20 points. You got to do better than that. Now, let me ask you about the rust factor, because this is also historic what's going on with Kansas City. Mahomes hasn't thrown the ball since Christmas. So the last 2 years, remember what happened 2 years ago? Tennessee shocked. 1 seed lost. Green Bay lost. 1 seed, horrible special teams, came back to bite them. Last year, 49ers, very rusty. Could have lost that game, should have lost that game.
Yeah.
And it kind of similarities maybe to this Washington game I'll get to later. Ravens also rusty. They were trailed at halftime before blowing out the Texans. So does that come into play with what I think the bye was beneficial for Detroit? You're getting guys back.
I think so,
but
too.
We'll see. Andy Reid, nothing phases him. Nothing phases Mahomes, but he hasn't thrown a pass since Christmas.
Well, plus the Lions had that massive game in Week 18 they had to have.
Yeah, right.
To get the bye week. So they just played basically. It's not even going to be a 2-week layoff for them because that was a Sunday. Now this game is going to be a Saturday. For the Chiefs, it's a lot longer than that.
Right. So I would, if I want the dog, I would play first half there, based on the rust factor, especially with the Chiefs that we've seen 2 years in a row.
It's almost going to be a month, yeah.
Yeah.
Because of the Christmas Day.
You didn't play in one week
game,
18?
and then the Week 18 they meant nothing for them,
yes.
and they wanted to sit the guys.
Yeah.
I recall, trust me, I recall 2011 Green Bay like it was yesterday.
No, yes, so many examples.
15-1 in the final game of the regular season. Sat everybody. Matt Flynn lit up Detroit. They scored like 48 points. Best team in football. Defending champs. They crushed everybody. Had all that time off. Here come the Giants in the Lambeau. Games. Hail Mary completed at halftime. Turned the game off.
Mm-hmm.
It was over with.
Yep. And they even got Brady one year when he was 14-2.
Yeah.
And that year they throttled the Jets at home on Monday Night Football. We're back tomorrow. Sirius XM Channel 158. Get ready for 24/7 sports betting coverage. Sirius XM app. All the insights, analysis, and picks you need to stay ahead of the game. And we've also launched a new show for Sirius XM listeners, VSiN Live, Mad Dog Sports Radio. Maher and Dustin catch it every weeknight from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. That's on Channel 82. So we debut tomorrow. Sirius XM Channel 158, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Ian Eagle, Derek Stevens, Sal Pal, Mike Somich to ring it in.
There you go. Excellent news, and that discussion will lead us into player props for the divisional round up next. Going to dive into some quarterback rushing yards, right? It's the playoffs. These guys are going to take off more than normal. Well, you're paying a heavy tax on it. I'll explain that coming up on Follow the Money. It's VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
More player props here. Fantasy Football Hall of Famer Paul Charchian makes his weekly appearance. He's on the Progressive guest line off of a great appearance last week. And, he's probably still hurting a little bit from what happened to his beloved Minnesota Vikings on Monday night, Charch. Or are you over that by now?
No, I'm still actively processing the loss right now. And I've got a variety of symptoms: upset stomach, dizziness, dry mouth, hives, constipation, insomnia, drowsiness, blood in my stool, and tinnitus.
That's a typical Tuesday though for you, I think, right? From all the medication that you're on anyway.
Yeah, if you're a Vikings fan, it is.
Yeah,
I mean that's pretty much weekly for us. Yeah, so it was so Viking, right? To set all kinds of new records for new ways to lose. It's what we do here in Minnesota. And here's the thing: you run into a Minnesota Viking fan, that's true fandom right there. You have no doubt that that's somebody who has gone through the ringer and is certainly not just somebody who's jumping on a bandwagon. That's for sure.
Yeah. So you weren't surprised for a second.
No, I thought the Rams would win. I was worried it'd go exactly this way with another Sam Darnold meltdown. The interior of the offensive line's terrible. Sam made bad decisions, and the whole thing blew up. Yeah, it's the defense didn't play a half bad game, but the whole thing really shifted on that super questionable call about whether or not Matthew Stafford was throwing forward or if it should have been an interception, touchdown, pick six for Blake Cashman. And that would have been a tie game right there. And maybe this thing would have ended differently, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What do they do now?
J.J. McCarthy's your starting Vikings quarterback. I think it's an absolute done deal. Sam Darnold will be elsewhere. I think he lost no less than $150 million in 8 days.
Oh, come on.
He was sitting on no less than $40 million a year times 4 years, and maybe more than that if there could have been a bidding war between Pittsburgh and the Giants and the Raiders. Had he just played to form through the playoffs, and instead he'll have to battle. It might be backup money or like the kind of money the kind of thing where he has to win the job and get some accelerations in his contract. He might be looking at a 1 year, 10, 15, $20 million deal now.
Absolutely brutal.
That's
okay,
strong.
so in that game, Hawkinson led everybody in receiving yards, which was 15-1, by the way. And Dallas Goedert is coming off of a really nice game against Green Bay. Rams are bad against tight ends, so I'm guessing this is going to be a Dallas Goedert game.
Yep, we're going to go over 35.5 and over 3.5 receptions for Dallas Goedert. I think any lingering concerns about his knee injury disappeared with that amazing touchdown last week. I don't think I've ever seen a defender get stiff-armed 3 different times on the same play. Oh, that was awesome. I will note, just at the outset, Goedert did go under this line against the Rams in week 12, but the Rams have gotten a lot worse against tight ends since then. In the final 5 weeks of the regular season, the Rams ranked dead last in yards allowed to tight ends, 76 per game. Ooh. That's double what we need from Goedert. And over those same final 5 games, LA allowed the 3rd most tight end receptions, 7 per game. Again, double what we need from Goedert. And Goedert gets like all the tight end targets, right? There's really not anybody else that when Goedert is healthy that's going to step up and take tight end targets away from him. Rams didn't play their starters in week 18, but I'll note that the backups there got smoked by Seattle's tight ends. But then we just back up a little bit. Week 17 against LA, the Rams gave up 12 catches and 123 yards to Trey McBride. Week 16 against LA, the Jets' anonymous tight ends put up 71. And the week before that, George Kittle, 61 yards. I love the over 35.5 and over 3.5 receptions, Dallas Goedert.
Excellent breakdown. Follow the money here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Our guest, Paul Charchian, Fantasy Football Hall of Famer. He is on the Progressive Guest Line. 2 running backs, same game. What do you want to do with Samaje Perine for the Chiefs? And on the flip side, Joe Mixon for the Texans.
This is probably my favorite prop that I'm going to give you today is the Samaje Perine over 8.5 receiving yards. That's all. If you don't know, Perine is the designated passing down back for the Chiefs. On Kansas City's long down and distance situations, Isaiah Pacheco has only been on the field for a total of 2 snaps since his return in week 13. And for Kareem Hunt in long down and distance situations, he's only been on the field a total of 2 snaps all year. All the rest of the snaps in long down and distance all go to Samaje Perine, who's been on the field for 162 snaps in long down and distance situations. And Perine has topped this line 8.5 yards, 7 straight games and 12 of the last 13 games. And Perine's average game since week 5 through the air is 23 receiving yards. I need 8.5 here. So, and on the Houston side of this, they've allowed an opposing back to top this line in 15 of 18 games. There are so many trends for the over here that it just feels like a slam dunk on the over 8.5 receiving yards.
That is outstanding.
Yes.
And then Mixon, you want to go under rushing yards?
Yeah. So for Mixon, I do want to go under here. He's his line 58.5 rushing yards. This line mirrors his output against Kansas City from the week 16 game. He ran for 57 yards. Now, here's what you need to know. When Mixon flops, he flops hard. And he's been held to under 26 rushing yards, less than half what we need here, for the past 7 games. 11 different times this year, Kansas City has held the opposition's number 1 runner to under the line. And 9 different times this year, Kansas City's held the opposition's number 1 runner to under 36 yards. You know, it's half their games, and it's way under this line. Now, earlier this year, Mixon was Houston's workhorse back, win or lose, and he was just getting carries. But that changed in the middle of the season, and especially not lately. In the Week 16 game against Kansas City, just 14 carries. The Week 17 loss, Mixon had just 9 carries. So he's not a workhorse back in every situation now, and especially in losses. And if you think Houston's going to lose, Mixon could get phased out of this game. And last thing I'll mention, Kansas City, the numbers I already gave you suggest this, but they're a good, not like totally dominating, but they're a good run defense. Yards per carry allowed, 4th best. Yards after contact, 4th best. Missed tackles, 4th best. Rushing yards allowed, 8th best.
Okay. How about the Bills game? What do you want to do with Cook?
This is another under. I'm not crazy about Cook here, and I feel more strongly about this one. His line is 56.5 rushing yards. This is absurdly high. And by the way, it's been heading down. Jump in now if you like it. Only 2 runners topped this line all year against Baltimore. Just 2. And James Cook was not one of them in the earlier meeting when he only had 39 rushing yards. Now, Baltimore's been the league's most consistently good run defense all year long. Here's some ranks for you. Rushing yards allowed, first. Yards per carry, first. Run defense success rate, second. Yards after contact, first. That's Baltimore. And that brings me to this point. Opposing runners tend to have massive dud games against the Ravens. Here's some recent history for you. Najee Harris last week ran for 17 yards. That's 44 yards under his average. The week before that, Dante Foreman had 27 yards, whatever, he's terrible. The week before that, Joe Mixon, non-terrible, 26 yards against Baltimore. That was 52 yards under his average. And the week before that, again, Najee Harris, 42 yards, 19 yards under his average. So not only are running backs struggling, but they're posting really bad numbers. I don't think you can generally ladder down, right? I mean, if I could ladder down James Cook, I would. And maybe you can find ways to get under this 56 and a half rushing yards. And, there's a scenario here where James Cook is sitting at, 29, 39 yards. And that would be in play here.
Want to hear the angle on Ty Johnson? What do you want to do with him?
Oh, I'm really excited about this. First, I wish I could bet Ty Johnson other ways. The only thing I can do are touchdown bets. If you can find Ty Johnson receiving bets, take the over. I don't know what it is, whatever the line is. I mean, look at the line, evaluate it, but lean over here, okay? We're going to work with what we have, which is Ty Johnson to score the last touchdown at plus 3,300, 33-1. Here's why. Ray Davis is in the concussion protocol. It doesn't look like he's going to be able to go. And that with Ray Davis out last week, Ty Johnson, a career high 33 snaps with the Bills. Johnson also set a season high with 16 routes run last week. And if you think there's any scenario where the Bills are not just running out the clock at the end of the game, again, we're looking for the last touchdown scored. So that would be like either this is a back and forth battle, the Bills are passing at the end of the game, probably a shootout given the total here is so high, or the Bills are playing catch up, which is possible. Ravens are favored. Then passing at the end of the game is absolutely in play for the Bills and Ty Johnson. And he's emerged as their passing down back. James Cook has been on the field in long down and distance situations, just 2 snaps since week 8. All the rest of the work goes to Ty Johnson, who's been on the field in long down and distance situations, 132 snaps. And the kicker, I'll give you on all this. Ravens allowed the 4th most receiving yards to runners this year, so they can get beat through the air by running backs. Ty Johnson, last touchdown, plus 3,300.
That is dynamite. We don't have time to expand on this, but you like Terry McLaurin to go over his receiving yards.
I do in this one. And also Dyami Brown is an interesting one as well. Take a look at both here. There are a lot of trends that I like.
Okay, excellent. Follow him on X. He's at Paul Charchian. That was awesome, my friend. Thank you. Good luck this weekend.
Thanks, friends. Yep.
Coming off of, I think it was 6-2, I want to say, in the wild card weekend with us here. Up next, win some, lose some, and we're going streaking tonight. Massive NHL card. 11 straight games now. This is cashed. We're back, baby.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
With the national title game, a few days away here with professional sports bettor Brad Powers. He joins us here on the Progressive Guest Line. Website is bradpowersports.com. Follow him on social media at BradPower7. Good afternoon, Brad. Thanks for the time today. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
I want to start with this. When you look at both teams and who they have played specifically in the playoffs, and maybe you can tell me that it's a stretch and I'm reaching, or there's something to this. Ohio State, obviously at home, walloped Tennessee. Now, how good is Tennessee? That's debatable. Then, how many teams in the country could do what they did to Oregon? Probably 0 other teams could do that. Then they beat Texas. Now, I don't think Texas is amazing, but their power rating was super high all year long, and Ohio State did not have their A game. If you flip it and look at who Notre Dame has defeated, Indiana, extremely weak schedule on the regular season. They beat an overrated Georgia team with an inexperienced backup quarterback. And then Penn State, super talented, but the head coach is 1-15 against teams in the top 5. Anything there?
Well, the way you broke it down, I would agree that Ohio State's had the tougher path and has had the most impressive path since the start of the playoffs. I mean, since then, I've upgraded Ohio State's power ranking since the end of the regular season by 5 points. Even though Notre Dame's won 3 games, covered 3 games, I've upgraded them, but it's been closer to a point compared to 5 points for Ohio State.
How about the Irish being battle tested with all those ranked wins, and then what they're doing? Is this a record? They've covered 11 in a row?
I got to look it up. I mean, I can't off the top of my head remember a longer streak. At least at I think the 08 Florida Gators, after they lost to Ole Miss, covered every single game. After that, Tebow had that famous speech. That's the first one that comes to mind. I think Western Kentucky, when they jumped up to FBS and like 10 plus years ago, covered a ton in a row, but not at this level. Especially if they were somehow to cover another one here and go 12 in a row, it's up there with the longest in the history of the sport.
Yeah. As a Notre Dame guy, what were you thinking when Kelly left and they promoted Freeman? Did you think somehow this would be a positive?
That's a good question. I mean, I was not a fan of Brian Kelly at all. So, I thought obviously the floor was much lower with an unproven coach and Marcus Freeman. It could have went bad. Keep in mind, Notre Dame was coming off 5 straight double-digit win seasons at that point, the most success they'd had as a program in a quarter century. But I thought there was a possibility that Freeman's ceiling would be higher than Brian Kelly, because obviously Brian Kelly didn't win the big games. Here we are 3 years later, and the floor was lower with losses against Northern Illinois, Marshall. So we've seen that, and even a game against Stanford where they were 2 touchdown plus favorite, lost that one. But the ceiling has been higher because Marcus Freeman's already in 3 years done something that Brian Kelly never did in 12 years, and that's win major postseason games, and Freeman's got 3 of them. Yeah,
and this is nuts, too, because they haven't won since 88. You got the rabid fan base with Ohio State. I think the get-in price is like $500 for the Euchre seats, and the good tickets are $1,500 to $2,000 as well. Do you think Ohio State blows out Texas if Henderson doesn't get that penalty?
Yeah, I mean, they were well on their way to 14-0. It looked very similar to start, at least at that point, to the Oregon game where nothing was going wrong, and then everything started going wrong for Ohio State after that point, and started with that penalty, turned into like 5 or 6 penalties in the first half, and then, on a down and down out basis, Will Howard was making all the throws early, throwing into tight windows, and then all of a sudden wasn't making those throws. Ohio State, when they're on, what we saw in the first 20 minutes of the game against Texas, what we saw against Oregon, what we saw against Tennessee, I mean, they're by far the best team in the country. They're just not the most consistent team. They tend to beat themselves from time, at certain points. And ultimately for this game, it comes down to this for me. Ohio State plays clean, they're going to blow out Notre Dame. If they don't play clean, then we might have a game. Yeah, so is that too big of a question mark? The point spread is a great equalizer here, and I totally agree. If they show up with their A game, it could be a bloodbath. But if they don't, and there's a chance that they don't show up like that, then Notre Dame could be there late and could be a tight game. Yeah, so how do you attack it? Well, I can tell you this. Obviously the point spread, we're last game of the season. It should be relatively inefficient. If you think your power rating has a difference of 3 or 4 points, I mean, you're probably not doing things right at this point in the season. But if there is some variance, where's it going to likely show up? Is it more likely Notre Dame, say it's 10 points off the spread? Is it likely Notre Dame wins the game outright, or is it more likely Ohio State wins by 17 or more? I think the answer is clearly Ohio State could win this game by 17 or more. So what I've done is I've attacked the alt lines. Minus 14.5 in pocket, minus 17.5 in pocket for me on Ohio State in this game. How do they win the game and Will Howard is an MVP? He's $1.10. Do you think it? I mean, because Smith had 1 catch against Texas, even though Grady was against Oregon. He's $1.80 to have the most receiving yards. Do you think that's the bet too? Howard $1.10? Yeah, I mean, I could see it. The only thing is with Notre Dame playing predominantly man-to-man coverage, maybe one of the wide receivers blows up, and maybe it's not even Jeremiah Smith. Maybe it's Egbuka, who had 7 catches for 96 yards last year against Notre Dame. So that would be my only hang-up with. There could be a couple of explosives to just one guy at wide receiver. He has a couple of touchdowns on 150 yards. Then you're going to give it to him. So that would be my only hang-up. You're Ohio State. What scares you about this Notre Dame offense right now? Not much. I mean, Notre Dame got a bunch of explosive runs during the regular season. They were in the top 15 in the country in explosive run percentage. Now they're in the bottom 5 if you count the 3 playoff games, if you were to extrapolate that for the regular season. Outside of the 98-yard run against Indiana, I mean, the running backs are only averaging 3 yards per carry. Jeremiah Love, I guess if he's closer to 100%, we've seen him a little bit better than expected against Penn State. But if he's not 100%, I don't fear the run game. I certainly don't fear the passing game either. So well, you asked the right question. I think, my favorite bet of this game is Notre Dame's team total under 17.5 or higher.
Okay.
Yeah,
you're right. I mean, if Love is totally healthy, the guy's a complete stud, and he could have a great game against anybody. I also don't know if he's going to be 100% healthy, but in the aerial attack, guys were wide open against Penn State. Is Riley Leonard going to beat the Buckeyes throwing the football? Maybe I'm dead wrong. I just cannot see that happening.
I can't, but then again, I didn't see him throwing for 250, yards combined with Angeli against Penn State. So I will say that, I mean, I'm being pretty negative towards Notre Dame. I mean, there's a pathway here. Ohio State has turnovers. Well, guess what? Notre Dame's number one in the country in forcing turnovers, so they're capable of doing it. And then I will also say that Notre Dame's offense, the final 32 minutes against Penn State. Now, Ohio State's defense is better than Penn State, but Notre Dame put up 27 points and over 300 yards in 32 minutes of football. That's pretty good offensively.
They look great.
That was their best offensive performance, in my opinion, relative to their opponent's strength of any game all season. And I'll also say they weren't great against Georgia, but they were one pre-snap motion penalty away from running the entire last 9 minutes of the game out against Georgia's defense. So, yeah, they're going to have to play bully ball, get in a phone booth like Michigan and, just be more efficient, make less mistakes than Ohio State.
Well, you hit on it, too, in your Henderson answer. That Texas game, they were constantly in first and 20 and second and 15 with the stupid penalties, and they were going backwards.
Yeah, I mean, if Ohio State makes as many mental errors in this game, I'm here to tell you, Notre Dame's defense isn't giving up a 75-yard screen pass touchdown with 20 seconds left before the half. They're not doing it. So, and guess what? From the 1 yard line, you're getting quarterback power against Ohio State. I know Ohio State's red zone defense has been great, but I'm going to tell you, Riley Leonard's running the football 3-4 times in a row. And likely that's a touchdown on the board for Notre Dame and not for Ohio State the other way, like we saw, with Jack Sawyer against Texas.
Yeah, well said. So Notre Dame team total under. You bet Ohio State alt numbers. Any other player props that you would consider at this point?
The one I liked, can't take credit for it because a couple guys were on top of it before me. His name's Franchise, but his name is Notre Dame's third string running back, Aeneas Williams, had 66 yards receiving against Penn State. And what did Texas hurt Ohio State in? Was throwing the running backs out of the backfield. So I think a similar game plan for Notre Dame. 11 of the 18 receptions that Williams has had this season is coming to 3 playoff games. So they'll throw to him out of the backfield. That's maybe one weakness that Notre Dame can take advantage of. So over receiving yards for him, it's like 24.5, 25.5.
All right. Excellent. Enjoy the game. You're from Ohio, but you grew up a Notre Dame fan, and it should be a fun one for you to have your eyeballs on Monday night. We can't thank you enough for popping on every single Thursday throughout the entire season, Brad. It was awesome. Much appreciated.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
You're the best.
Be good.
Thanks.
Enjoy the game. Good luck. He joined us here on the Progressive Guest Line. Follow him on social media at BradPower7.
Circa Las Vegas owner Derek Stevens in studio tomorrow, and he's offering you 15% off at 3 great properties, Circa, the D, Golden Gate. Save big with the promo code VSIN15. Book your stay right now. CircaLasVegas.com, code VSIN15. Get 15% off. Your Vegas adventure starts here. Great time. The history. They did awesome. We'll play it tomorrow. Derek put out something great on Instagram about the history of Golden Gate as well, where the Rat Pack used to hang and drink. And that was the Frank B. Trivia question about the oldest telephone.
Yep.
Everything over there, the history, Golden Gate. Get the suite, get the penthouse. Always a great time. CircaLasVegas.com.
Sal. What is that? Las Vegas backwards?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you had to know what it was?
Yes. Yeah. Another good one.
We'll look at UFC 311. Lou Finocchiaro up next. Has the number on the favorite in the main event gotten too high?
Follow the money. That's what I always say. You always follow the money. Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSIN.
Welcome in. It is Follow the Money here on VSIN, the Sports Betting Network. Mitch Moss, Paulie Howard. We're live in downtown Las Vegas from the Circa Resort and Casino. Coming up this hour, Paulie sees some similarities in a big matchup tonight in the NBA. Also between what happened last year in the Packers-49ers playoff game, a game that we have coming up this weekend. And some of the best teams in the country in college basketball are playing tonight, and they are tremendous at going over the total. We'll talk about that and our best bets for tonight and moving forward as well. We are efforting Lou Finocchiaro to talk UFC 311 coming up here in a second to get his best bets on the card. I wanted to ask him if this number on the main event has gotten maybe a little bit too high. And we do have Lou as we speak. Lou Finocchiaro joins us here on the Progressive Guest Line. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, guys. Sure great to be with you. Happy football's winding down so we can get some UFC coverage.
Great job, by the way, going back to the summertime with your win totals with us.
Thank you so much. It was a really, really good NFL season. Although for the first 6 weeks, I felt like I was walking with a red-tipped cane. I couldn't find a winner.
Yeah, well, I think that it went that way for a lot of people who bet this stuff for a living. So what do you think in the main event now? Has this number on the favorite gotten a little bit too high?
Gentlemen, after a 70.5% rate of favorites last year, the marketplace has attacked this fight card. 14 fights, 8 of the favorites have been hammered profusely. And you ask about the main event, Makhachev opens minus 217. Now he's anywhere from 280 to 3.25, and that's a modest increase. So there's a lot of the market that just is believing that these favorites are going to continue to tsunami their way through January, February, and March. And while I'm a dog player, I must respect that 70.5% rate. And to answer the question on Makhachev at 370, that's too high, even though without question, he's the pound for pound best fighter alive right now.
26-1, absolutely. How about your write-up on VSiN.com on the main event and the co-main that you think they can go the distance even though they're heavily juiced over 4.5 rounds?
I do believe they'll go the distance. If the co-main does not go the distance, Umar will finish Dvalishvili. I think Dvalishvili is a little emotional for this fight, and emotions don't work well in sports. As far as the main event is concerned, Volkanovski, who fought Makhachev twice in the first fight they competed in, Volkanovski took Makhachev to a decision. And Poirier, in Makhachev's last fight, almost made it to decision. This young man, Arman Tsarukyan, he's coming to win. He's got everything Makhachev has, except maybe some experience, length, and height.
How about an interesting prop you have on Nurmagomedov? Where'd you find this? This is unique.
This is the co-main event for Umar Nurmagomedov, and if you look at him, his price against champion Dvalishvili, Umar opened minus 170. Now he's minus 285, 295, wherever you're shopping. And Dvalishvili sawed through the whole bantamweight division. He did not want to fight Nurmagomedov this early and in his first title defense. The UFC coerced him into doing it. Everyone knows that. Now, with that being said, Umar Nurmagomedov minus 285, that's pretty prohibitive. However, if you look in the future sections of DraftKings, you can find who would be as a future position, who will be the champion 12/31 of 25, meaning the end of this year. Umar Nurmagomedov minus 120. Guys, I don't want to overstate it, but that's like stealing. I believe he beats Dvalishvili, who's the top bantamweight in the division. Everyone else they give him will be crumbs, and I think that if he wins this fight, he ends up the champion still at the end of the year.
How many more fights do you think he would have by the end of the year?
How many more fights would he have?
Yeah.
Probably 2, Mitch. That's a good question. Probably 2 fights.
But you don't see anybody that would be in that division that would touch him?
No one wants to fight him. The guy can't get a fight.
Yeah.
Excellent find. Great find. So, yep, over 4.5 in the main lean on VSiN.com and over 4.5 in the Magomedov fight as well. How about De Ridder against Holland? De Ridder 18-2 and about $1, even money in that range, $1.20. Take it away with that fight.
De Ridder is new to the organization, has only had one fight, primarily a world-class grappler. However, most of his career was spent at 205 pounds. He fights a guy in Kevin Holland who's relatively well-rounded, but not as versed on the ground as DeRidder. Holland needs this fight upright. He needs distance to be able to use his athleticism and his length and his pitter-patter striking. DeRidder will have to get in and get a hold of him and get him to the ground one way or another. Holland has been teeter-tottering between 185 and 170 and has found most of his success in the UFC at 170 pounds. He takes this fight at 185, and DeRidder, a 205er, takes the 85 as a bigger man dropping down. Fight night, DeRidder will be much the larger man, although he may not be the quicker man. I think this fight is designed to make DeRidder look good. The UFC has a company man in Holland that just says yes. Mm-hmm. He's not interested in championships, belts, titles, accolades. He's interested in money. He just wants to fight. I like DeRidder here, close to a pick.
All right, follow the money here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Our guest, Lou Finicaro. He's on X at GamLou. His write-ups are at VSiN.com for all of the UFC cards, and this is the 311 card that we're talking about. Okay, state your case here for a dog as Tagir Ulanbekov takes on Clayton Carpenter.
This is the first fight of the night, so let's not sleep on this one. And Tagir Ulanbekov is from the Khabib team. So Makhachev and Umar Nurmagomedov are teammates of his. However, he is not as pedigreed a fighter as is his two other countrymen, all Dagestanis. Ulanbekov's been relatively inactive. He's fought through slogged through some injuries. He's a long, tall drink of water, and he's just not the same kind of fighter that the other guys are. He's drafting on his team a little bit. And as we start to see American wrestlers competing with Dagestani wrestlers, there's a tremendous rivalry going there. What do we have in Clayton Carpenter? We have a savant, world-class American wrestler. He's not as long and tall as Ulanbekov. He's a little shorter and more squat, giving away some experience, but he's had two great initial UFC bouts that he shined in. He's completely ready for this fight. And this is a PhD in MMA fight where the student, I think, is going to school Ulanbekov, who isn't quite of the ilk the rest of the Dagestani wrestlers are. Clayton Carpenter's ready for this fight.
Okay, so anything around plus 260?
I'd say Clayton Carpenter plus 225 or higher, and that'll cover everything. We released him Monday on the Sneak Teep podcast at minus 275.
Okay,
beautiful.
Excellent.
Almeida, 21-3, $4. I know you're not going to mess with that. What's inside the distance pay?
Yeah, you're darn right. I'm not going to mess with no $4 price on Almeida, especially after he opened like 198. But I do like inside the distance. He fights a guy from Moldova, Sergey Spivak. They call him the polar bear, and a polar bear is faster than Sergey Spivak is. Spivak looks like Nosferatu, and he moves like evolution, very slow. And Almeida is a guy that fought at 205 pounds, and just like Umar Nurmagomedov, no one would fight this guy. So he said, I'll get fights. He moves to heavyweight. He fought at 215, then 225. He'll be 240 or 245 for this fight, but he's faster, he's quicker, he's more explosive, and I do believe he'll get this job done before 3 rounds is over.
Okay, of all the bets that you've talked about so far, do you have a best bet, or are they all pretty much the same?
Clayton Carpenter. I'm hanging my hat on Clayton Carpenter.
I love it.
Good job.
Okay.
Good job. How much do you like Hill against Yuri?
I like Hill against Yuri a little bit. I'm not a Hill fan. I believe that there are holes in his game. However, the holes in his game are less than Yuri's holes. And Yuri's holes is that he's got no defense. He carries his arms low. We saw what Pereira did to him twice. If Hill can look impressive against Prochaska, he gets a good shot at trying to face Pereira again. And that's a different fight. But I think Hill's up for Prochaska here.
All right, pal.
All right.
So it was a solid NFL season for you after about week 6, divisional round. What do you like?
Until you flash that Mixon news, I was leaning a little bit Houston. And if that news allows the line to move up, I'll stay with them.
Okay.
I like the under in Philadelphia in the Rams a little bit, and I don't believe in Lamar Jackson. If that team gets behind, either he, because he's unable to be a pocket quarterback, or that offensive coordinator Monken, who spit up all over his shirt last year, will find a way to choke that thing away. I think it's Buffalo, and I like them a good deal.
Wow. Okay, we're on opposite sides there. You can follow Lou on X. He is at GamLou. Excellent appearance as always. Best of luck this weekend.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate you having me.
Good to talk to you.
There you go. He was on the Progressive guest line. All right, I'm going to rush to bet Carpenter during the break. That's a huge plus price.
Over 2.5 minus 240. The ladies fight's $5. Over 4.5 minus 250 in the Nurmagomedov fight. Makachev minus $2 in some spots. And there's another big one, too, with the round prop as well. How about what he said on Almeida? $1.80 to $4.15.
How about that? Yeah. Paulie sees some similarities in this matchup when you compare it to the Packers-49ers playoff game a year ago.